stood in the main hall of Galactic Academy Station Harmony 7 and felt very small. The ceiling stretched so high above her that she could barely see it. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing information in 12 different languages. Students from dozens of alien species walked past her, their skin colors ranging from deep blue to bright orange to colors she had no names for. Beside her, Park was staring at everything with wide eyes. Her best friend had always loved technology, and this place was full of things they had only seen in videos back on Earth. Reached out to touch a floating display, and it immediately switched to human-readable text. "Welcome to Galactic Academy," the display said. "Please proceed to Orientation Hall C for species-specific briefing." They followed the glowing arrows on the floor. Other human students joined them along the way. There were maybe 30 humans total, out of thousands of students at the academy. Noticed how the other species moved away from them in the hallways. Some stared. Others whispered to each other while looking at the human group. In Orientation Hall C, a tall being with feathers and sharp eyes stood at the front. This was Instructor, according to the name floating above his head. He welcomed them in a voice that sounded like wind through trees. "You are the first humans in your families to attend this academy," said. "This is a great honor. It is also a great challenge. Many here do not understand your species. Some fear you. Others simply think you do not belong." Felt anger rise in her chest, but held up one wing-like hand. "I tell you this not to discourage you, but to prepare you. You will need to work twice as hard as any other student here. You will need to prove yourselves every single day. This is not fair, but it is the reality you face." After orientation, and found their shared quarters. The room was small but comfortable, with 2 beds that adjusted to human size and a window looking out at the stars. Immediately started examining the room's computer system while unpacked her few belongings. "Did you see how they looked at us?" asked quietly, "like we were dangerous or something." "We're from Earth," said. "They probably think we are dangerous." The next morning they attended their first class. Xenobiology was taught by Ambassador, a being who looked almost human but with silver skin and eyes that had no whites. She was tall and elegant, and when she looked at the human students, her expression showed clear distaste. "Today we discuss," announced. The holographic display behind her showed a rotating planet. It is a planet so hostile that no intelligent species should be able to evolve there. The gravity is too strong. The atmosphere is too toxic. The weather is too violent. The ecosystem is too dangerous. She touched her control pad, and the image changed to show Earth. The planet glowed red on the display, with warning symbols floating around it. "Earth is classified as a Class 12, continued. "It has gravity 30% higher than galactic standard. Its atmosphere contains oxygen at levels that would be toxic to most species here. Its weather systems can destroy entire regions. And its ecosystem." She paused dramatically. 90% of Earth species are predators or possess venom. Looked around the classroom. The other species were staring at the human students with a mixture of horror and fascination. One student actually moved her desk further away. "No species survives long enough to develop civilization," said, her voice firm. "It is simply impossible. The conditions are too harsh. Any species that claims to come from such a world is either lying or is an aberration of nature." His hand shot up before she could stop herself, looked annoyed but nodded at her. "Then why are graduates still sent from Earth to serve in the galactic fleet?" asked. Her voice was steady, but her heart was pounding. "If we're aberrations, why do we have the highest retention rates in every military branch?" The classroom went silent. Every student turned to look at. His silver skin seemed to darken slightly. "That is an impertinent question," the ambassador said coldly, "and one that shows you do not understand your place here." "I'm just asking about the statistics," replied. "They're public record." His eyes narrowed. "This class is about biology, not politics. We will move on." but noticed instructor standing in the back of the classroom. He was watching her, and something in his expression looked almost like approval. After class, pulled out her personal tablet and started searching through the Academy's database. "You're right about the statistics," she said excitedly. "Look at this. Humans are only 3% of the galactic fleet, but we make up 34% of all decorated officers." Leaned over to look at the screen. The numbers were even more interesting than she had thought. Humans held 12% of all deep space exploration records, and in a category labeled Survival Rates in Hostile Environments, humans scored 400% above the galactic average. "Why would they accept us into the fleet if we're so dangerous?" wondered aloud. "Maybe because we're useful," said. That evening couldn't stop thinking about lecture. She went to the Academy's library, a massive space filled with holographic archives and quiet study areas. She searched for information about and found hundreds of files. Most of them were public access, but one file caught her attention. The Advantage Classified Study, Galactic Council Eyes Only. She tried to open it, but a warning message appeared. Insufficient clearance, access. Trying to read things you shouldn't, a voice asked behind her. Jumped and turned around. A human student stood there, older than her, with a confident smile. He had short dark hair and a scar on his left cheek. "I mean you," he said. "Fourth year combat specialist. And you're the cadet who asked Ambassador an uncomfortable question. Everyone's talking about it." "I just wanted to know the truth," said. Mean You's smile faded. "The truth is that they're scared of us. They won't say it directly, but that's what it is. We come from a world that would kill most of them in hours. We're stronger, faster, and we heal from injuries that would cripple them permanently. And that terrifies them. Then why let us join the Academy at all?" "Because they need us," Mean You said. "But they don't want to need us, so they limit how many humans can enroll. They watch us constantly. They put restrictions on what we can learn." He glanced at the classified file displayed on her screen. "And they hide the truth about what we really are." Looked at the access message again. "Do you know what's in this file?" "No," Mean You said. "But I know someone who might be able to help you find out, if you're brave enough to break some rules." Thought about's condescending expression. She thought about how the other students moved away from humans in the hallways. She thought about the statistics that didn't make sense. "I'm brave enough," she said. Mean You's smile returned. "Good. Meet me tomorrow night at the auxiliary power station on level 40. Bring your friend, the one who's good with computers. We're going to find out what the Galactic Council doesn't want us to know." That night lay in her bed and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, that had created humanity. She wondered what secrets the Council was hiding. She wondered what would happen when those secrets came to light. Beside her was already asleep, her tablet still glowing with pages of statistics and research. Closed her eyes and tried to rest. Tomorrow would bring answers, and probably trouble. But had grown up on Earth, where everything was dangerous and survival meant never backing down from a challenge. Whatever the Galactic Council was hiding, she would find it, and she would make them answer her question. Why were humans still sent from Earth if no species could survive? The answer was out there, locked behind classified files and careful lies, and was determined to discover it. The auxiliary power station on level 40 was supposed to be off-limits to students, and found it anyway, following Mean You's directions through a series of maintenance corridors that most people never used. The station hummed with energy, its walls covered in pipes and conduits that glowed faintly blue. Mean You was already there, along with another human student. She was tall and wore the uniform of a medical officer in training. "This is Han," Mean You said. "She's been at the Academy for 2 years and knows more about the security systems than most of the staff." Nodded at them. "Mean You says you want to access classified files. That's dangerous. If you get caught, you'll be expelled and sent back to Earth." "I know," said, But I need to understand why they treat us like we're inferior when the statistics say we're not. Studied her for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough, you're the tech expert, come here. For the next hour and worked together at a hidden terminal. Watched as lines of code scrolled across the screen, too fast for her to read. Minyu stood guard at the corridor entrance, watching for anyone who might interrupt them. Got it, finally said. The file's downloading now. The screen flickered and text began to appear. Leaned in close to read it. The Advantage, a classified study, the title read. Below it was a date from 15 years ago and a warning that unauthorized access was a criminal offense. Read anyway. The report was written by Galactic Council researchers who had studied human performance across dozens of categories. The findings were shocking. In every measure of physical capability, humans exceeded galactic standards. They could survive injuries that would kill other species. They could function in environments that others found impossible. They recovered from illness faster and adapted to new conditions with remarkable speed. But the most interesting part came in the conclusion. Humanity represents the second confirmed case of a species achieving space-faring capability. Like the first case, humans display psychological and physical traits that make them extremely effective in crisis situations. However, these same traits make them unpredictable and potentially dangerous to galactic stability. The second case said there was another species like us. Scrolled down, the report mentioned them briefly. The extinct for 50 years following the destruction of their. The words felt like ice in stomach. There was destroyed. It gets worse, said quietly. She had been reading over their shoulders. Look at the recommendation. Found it. Human integration into galactic society must be carefully controlled. Large populations of humans in positions of power represent an existential risk. Recommendation: limit human enrollment in all major institutions, monitor Earth-based activities, and prepare contingency plans for species-wide containment if necessary. They're planning to control us, Minyu said, or worse. Before anyone could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed on the walls. Someone found us, said. We need to go now. They ran through the maintenance corridors, but security drones were already blocking the main exits, pulled them into a side passage that led to the waste recycling systems. It smelled terrible, but it got them back to the student quarters without being caught. In this room, the four of them sat in tense silence. Had managed to copy the file to her personal tablet before they fled, but they all knew someone would investigate the security breach. What do we do now? Asked. Before could answer, there was a knock at the door. Everyone froze. Minyu moved toward the door, ready to defend them if needed. But when opened it, she found Instructor standing there alone. The bird-like alien looked at each of them, his sharp eyes missing nothing. I know what you did, said quietly. Half the security staff is searching for whoever accessed those files. Are you going to turn us in? Asked. Stepped inside and closed the door behind him. No, because you found something that I have suspected for years. The Council fears species. They fear what you represent. He pulled out a small data device and handed it to. This contains information about the real story, not the sanitized version in your history classes. They were the first species to reach the stars. They were brilliant, creative, and strong, and the Council destroyed them because they refused to be controlled. Took the device with shaking hands. Why are you helping us? Because I am tired of watching injustice, said. My species, the avians, were once considered primitive by Council standards. We faced discrimination until we proved ourselves useful, but we never faced what you face. We were never seen as existential threats. He paused. The Council has made arrangements for a special training exercise. All human students will be assigned to active military vessels for 2 weeks. They call it an evaluation, but I believe they are testing you. Preparing to make a decision about your species. What kind of decision? Minyu asked. Whether to allow humans to continue attending the academy, said, or whether to classify your entire species as too dangerous and restrict you to your own solar system. After Left opened the data device he had given her, files appeared on her screen showing images of they looked nothing like humans. They had 4 arms, thick-scaled skin, and eyes that glowed yellow. But when read about their history, she saw familiar patterns. They had come from a world even harsher than Earth. They had evolved as apex predators, just like humans. They had developed technology quickly once they reached space. They had excelled at everything the Galactic Council asked of them. And then they had started asking questions. Why were they restricted to certain ship designs? Why couldn't they colonize worlds the Council deemed too dangerous? Why were there limits on how many could serve in the military? The Council's answer had been final. They had released biological weapons on every member of the species had died within a week. The official story was that it had been a tragic plague, but these files showed the truth. It had been deliberate genocide. They killed an entire species, whispered, just because they were afraid. Felt sick, she looked at her friends. We can't let this happen to humanity, we can't. What can we do? Asked. We're just students, we have no power here. But Minyu was smiling grimly. We have the one thing they fear most. We're humans, we survived Earth, we can survive this. The next morning, official announcements appeared throughout the academy. All human students were to report for immediate deployment to galactic fleet vessels. The exercise would begin in 3 days. Read the announcement and felt her determination harden. This was their test. This was the Council's way of deciding whether humanity deserved to exist among the stars or should be eliminated like She gathered the other human students in a common area. There were 32 of them total, ranging from first-year cadets to fourth-year specialists like Minyu, and she told them what she had learned, about the classified report, about what the Council had done. Some were scared, some were angry, but all of them understood what was at stake. They expect us to fail, said. They expect us to be reckless and dangerous and prove their fears right, so we're going to do the opposite. We're going to be so good at this that they can't ignore us. We're going to show them that humans aren't dangerous. We're necessary. A young cadet named raised her hand, and if they still decide we're too dangerous. Met her eyes. Then we make sure the whole galaxy knows what they did to We make sure everyone knows that the Galactic Council commits genocide when species don't obey them. We make them answer for their crimes. The room was silent for a moment, then Minyu stood up. I'm in. One by one the others stood too, all 32 humans. They had 3 days to prepare. 3 days before they would be tested by a council that had already decided humans might need to be eliminated. 3 days before they would face the same choice they had faced. But looked at her fellow humans and felt hope. They had survived Earth, a world that tried to kill them every single day. They had thrived where other species would have died, and now they would show the galaxy what species could really do. The Council wanted to test them. Fine. Humans had been tested by the harshest teacher in the universe. They had graduated from Earth itself. Whatever the galactic fleet threw at them would seem easy by comparison. The destroyer Harmony's Pride was the largest ship had ever seen up close. It stretched for nearly a kilometer, its hull covered in weapons and sensor arrays. She stood in the docking bay with 5 other human students, waiting to board. Commander met them at the airlock. He was, with a hard shell that reflected the station lights and multiple eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. When he spoke, his voice buzzed like static. You are the human cadets, he said. It wasn't a question. I did not request human crew members. You were assigned to me by command. I will tolerate your presence, but I expect you to follow every order precisely. Humans have a reputation for recklessness. You will not be reckless on my ship. Kept her face neutral. Yes, Commander. assigned them to basic duties, was put in maintenance. Another student named was sent to the flight deck as an assistant. The others were scattered throughout the ship in positions that kept them away from anything important. For 3 days they did exactly as ordered, cleaned air filters and checked power conduits, ran simulations and studied the ship's navigation systems. They were model crew members, quiet and efficient. On the 4th day, the Harmony's Pride joined with 11 other ships to form the 7th Battle Group. Their mission was to patrol the neutral zone, a region of space where pirates and raiders operated freely. It was dangerous work, but routine for the Galactic Fleet. Had been assigned to an engineering vessel called the Technical Advance, Minu, and were on different ships entirely. The human students stayed in contact through encrypted messages, updating each other on their situations. Most reported the same experience. They were given menial work and watched constantly. Their commanding officers didn't trust them but couldn't find any reason to complain about their performance. Then on day 7, everything changed. The distress call came during sleep shift. Alarms woke her, and she rushed to the bridge, still fastening her uniform. The showed 12 civilian transports surrounded by a dense asteroid field. 3 raider vessels were moving in for the attack. They're carrying 4,000 civilians, the sensor officer reported. Mixed species. The raiders have already disabled 2 transport engines. Commander studied the tactical display. The asteroid field was a nightmare, thousands of chunks of rock spinning and colliding. Standard fleet doctrine was clear. We wait for reinforcements. The asteroid field makes direct engagement too dangerous. The civilians don't have time to wait, said before she could stop herself. Every head on the bridge turned to look at her. Multiple eyes focused on her with what might have been anger. You are a maintenance technician, said coldly. You do not speak on my bridge. I'm also a navigator, said, her heart pounding. I trained on asteroid field piloting on Earth, the belt between Mars and Jupiter. This field is actually less dense than that one. Impossible, the ship's navigator said. No one flies through asteroid fields. The collision probability is too high. Moved to the navigation console without permission. Her hands flew over the controls, plotting a course. Not if you use the asteroids themselves. They have gravity, small gravity but enough. You can slingshot between them. Use their rotation to gain speed and change vectors. It's dangerous, but it's possible. The course appeared on the main screen. It looked insane. The path threaded through gaps that seemed impossibly small, using gravitational assists from dozens of asteroids. The margin for error was almost zero. This would tear the ship apart, said. Only if you fly it scared, a voice said from the flight deck entrance. Walked onto the bridge. He had been assigned to flight operations, which meant he technically had clearance to be there. He studied course with a growing smile. I can fly this, said. I grew up flying shuttles through Earth's atmosphere, hurricane winds, lightning storms. This is just rocks in space. You are both insane, said. But he was looking at the tactical display where the raiders were closing in on the helpless transports. 4,000 civilians. The nearest reinforcements were 30 minutes away. We're from Earth, said quietly. Insane is what we do best. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he clicked his mandibles together in what might have been a sigh. Flight deck, this is the commander. Give the human pilot control. Navigation, transfer that course to his console. He turned to. If this destroys my ship, I will personally file charges against you. If this destroys your ship, I'll be dead, replied. So I'll have bigger problems. The Harmony's Pride turned toward the asteroid field. Sat at the pilot's station, his hands steady on the controls. Stood beside him, calling out gravitational readings and course corrections. They entered the field at full speed. Asteroids the size of buildings spun past the crew gripped their stations as the ship banked hard, followings piloting through impossible angles. Asteroid at Mark 17, called out. Use its gravity well to slingshot left. Pulled the ship into a turn that made everyone's stomach drop. They swept past the asteroid so close that the shields sparked from debris impacts. Then they were through, using the asteroid's gravity to boost their speed. Raiders are in range, the weapons officer reported. They don't see us, they're focused on the transports. Because they're smart enough not to fly through asteroid fields, the sensor officer muttered. Grinned, that's why it works. They emerged from the asteroid field directly behind the raider formation. At this range, the battle was over before it started. The Harmony's prize weapons tore through 2 raiders in the first salvo. The third tried to run but couldn't navigate the asteroids like could, plotted an intercept course and followed it perfectly, bringing them into firing position again. The third raider exploded. The civilian transports were safe. The bridge of the Harmony's Pride was silent except for the hum of the engines. Then, slowly, the crew began to cheer. Even Commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. Over the next week, similar stories came from the other ships in the battle group. Had saved the technical advance when its reactor started to overload. She jury-rigged a cooling system using parts that the chief engineer swore were incompatible. The reactor not only stabilized but ran 15% more efficiently than before. Minyu led a boarding action to retake a medical ship that raiders had captured. He and 3 other humans went in with minimal equipment and somehow subdued 12 raiders without any friendly casualties. The Marine commander called it the most terrifyingly effective combat action she had ever witnessed. Performed surgery on 3 different species simultaneously during a hull breach, working in 0 gravity with limited supplies. All 3 patients survived. The ship's chief medical officer put her in for a commendation. When the battle group returned to the academy after 2 weeks, they brought back 32 human students who had exceeded every expectation. They had saved lives, solved impossible problems, and performed feats that other species considered reckless, but which they simply called doing the job. Commander filed his report, stood in his office and listened as he read it aloud. Human crew members display a complete disregard for established safety protocols, said. They take risks that no rational being should consider. They attempt solutions that have no logical chance of success. He paused. They are also the reason 4,000 civilians are alive today. They are the reason this battle group completed its mission with 0 friendly casualties. They are the reason I am recommending that all fleet vessels request human crew assignments immediately. Blinked, sir. His eyes focused on her. I have been a fleet officer for 30 years. I have seen courage and cowardice. I have seen brilliance and stupidity. What I saw from your species was something different. You do not calculate odds before you act. You simply see what needs to be done and do it. This galaxy needs that, more than I realized. He handed her a data pad. This is a copy of my report. It will be sent to the Galactic Council. I do not know if it will change their opinion of humans, but I want them to know that one commander learned to trust a species he once feared. Took the data pad with shaking hands. Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Cadet, replied. You taught an old soldier that sometimes the most dangerous course is the only right one. That night all the human students gathered in quarters. They shared their stories, laughed at the close calls, and mourned the fear they had felt. But most of all, they celebrated. They had passed the test. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do. What happens now? Asked. Thought about Commander's report. She thought about the other reports that would be filed by officers across the battle group. She thought about the Galactic Council, reading those reports and trying to decide what to do about the humans who had proven themselves valuable but still terrifying. Now we wait, said, and we prepare for whatever comes next, because this isn't over. We proved we're useful, but that might make them fear us even more. Minyu nodded grimly. They were useful too, and look what happened to them. The room fell silent. They all knew the truth now. Being valuable didn't make them safe. It might make them more dangerous in the Council's eyes. But they also knew something else. They were humans, and they didn't give up. The news feeds exploded with stories about the human students. Videos of asteroid field flight went viral across a dozen species networks. Medical journals analyzed zero-gravity surgery. Engineering forums debated impossible reactor modifications. Watch the coverage from the Academy Library. Some species celebrated the humans as heroes. Others called for their immediate expulsion. The debate grew so heated that the Galactic Council announced an emergency session to discuss the human question. That was when Counselor Wren arrived at the Academy. She was 70 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore the formal robes of Earth's single representative to the Galactic Council. When she walked through the Academy halls, other students and staff moved aside, showing respect mixed with fear. Wren called a meeting with all the human students. They gathered in a private conference room, and she stood before them with a tired expression. "You have done something remarkable," Wren said. "You proved that humans can excel in any situation. You saved thousands of lives. You made the galaxy notice us." She paused. "And you may have just signed humanity's death warrant." The room went cold, stood up. "What do you mean?" Wren pulled up a holographic display. It showed what was left of it. The planet was gray and lifeless, its atmosphere stripped away. "This is what happens when species become too successful," Wren said quietly. "They were brilliant. They were strong. They were valuable to the Galactic Council, and when they started demanding equality, the Council destroyed them." "We know about the Minu said. "We found the classified files." Wren didn't look surprised. "Then you know what we're facing. The Council is meeting in 3 days to decide humanity's fate. Some want to give us full membership. Others want to restrict us to Earth permanently. And some," she hesitated, "some want to eliminate the threat before it grows." "Eliminate?" His voice shook. "You mean like they did to the—" "I mean exactly like that," Wren said. "There are biological weapons in storage. Weapons specifically designed to target human DNA, the same type used on the Council has had them ready for 20 years just in case." Felt like she couldn't breathe. "You've known this for 20 years. "I've suspected," Wren corrected. "I had no proof until recently. A junior researcher on the Council medical team contacted me secretly. He found the weapons research and was horrified. He gave me evidence, but he was discovered. He's been arrested." She pulled up another image. This one showed a young man with dark skin and kind eyes. His name was Song. He was human, 3rd generation born off-world. He worked for the Council for 5 years before he found the truth. Wren's voice cracked slightly. "He's scheduled for execution tomorrow." "For what crime?" asked. "Treason," Wren said. "He accessed classified information and transmitted it to a foreign power, meaning Earth." The room erupted in angry voices. Felt rage building in her chest. They were going to kill a human for revealing a plot to commit genocide against humans. The injustice was so complete that it almost seemed unreal. "I need to testify at the Council session," Wren continued, raising her voice over the noise. "I need to present the evidence of what they did to thee and what they're planning for humanity. But I'm just one voice. The Council has 47 members. Most of them are already afraid of us." "Then we make them more afraid," Minu said grimly. "We show them what humans can really do." "No," said sharply. Everyone turned to look at her. "That's exactly what they expect. They want us to be violent. They want us to prove we're dangerous. Then they can justify destroying Earth." "So what do we do?" asked. "Just wait for them to kill us." Thought about everything she had learned. The classified report, the statistics that showed human excellence, and she thought about Song, about to die for trying to save his species. "We tell the truth," said. "All of it. We make it public. Every species in the galaxy needs to know what the Council did to thee and what they're planning for humanity. We make it impossible for them to hide it." Ren shook her head. "If you do that, you'll be arrested too. The Council doesn't tolerate public challenges to its authority." "Then let them arrest us," said. "Let them arrest human students in front of the whole galaxy. Let everyone see what happens when you ask uncomfortable questions about the people in power." That night, Minyu broke into the Academy's communication center. It was easier than breaking into the classified files had been. The security was designed to keep people out, not to keep them from sending messages. They composed a message carefully. It included the classified report about species. It included the truth about the genocide. It included images of the biological weapons designed to kill humans, and it included Ren's testimony about Song. Then they sent it everywhere. Every news network, every academic institution, every government, every public forum they could find. They sent it to species who loved humans and species who hated them. They sent it to allies and enemies. The message had one simple title: The Legacy, What the Galactic Council Doesn't Want You to Know. By morning, the galaxy knew. The news networks were in chaos. Some claimed it was fake. Others demanded investigations. Species who had lost members during the extinction suddenly had questions about what really happened. And Minyu were arrested immediately. Security drones surrounded them in their quarters and took them to holding cells. But by then, it was too late. The message was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. Ren came to visit in her cell. She looked exhausted but also grimly satisfied. "What you did was incredibly stupid," Ren said. "It was also incredibly brave. The Council is in complete disarray. Half the member species are demanding answers. The other half are demanding your executions." "Will they kill us?" asked. "I don't know," Ren admitted. "But they can't hide the truth anymore, and that changes everything." Over the next 2 days, the galaxy watched and debated. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. Some species defended the Council. Others called for its dissolution. And humans, scattered across known space, began to speak up. They shared their own stories of discrimination, of being treated as dangerous aberrations. The Council's emergency session was moved up. They would meet in 1 day instead of 3. And instead of being held in private, it would be broadcast across the galaxy. On the morning of the session, and the others were released from their cells. No charges were filed. No explanation was given. They were simply told to attend the council session as witnesses. Stood in her cell's doorway and looked at the security officer who had released her. "Why?" she asked. "Why let us go?" The officer was a being she didn't recognize, with blue skin and silver eyes. "Because the whole galaxy is watching now," the officer said quietly. "And the council can't afford to look like tyrants, not anymore." The council chamber was enormous. It was a sphere in space, connected to the station by a single transport tube. Inside, representatives from 47 species floated in assigned positions. Humans were at the bottom, in what was called the petitioner's sphere. Floated there with Ren, Minyu, and every other human student from the academy. Below them, through the transparent floor, she could see thousands of ships. The entire galaxy was watching. Ambassador spoke first. She presented the case against humanity with cold precision. Humans were reckless. Humans were violent. Humans came from a world that should never have produced sentient life. Every argument she made sounded reasonable, backed by data and examples. Then Ren spoke. She told the truth about She showed the evidence of deliberate genocide. She revealed the biological weapons designed for use against humanity, and she introduced the human students, asking each to tell their story. Spoke last. She told them about the asteroid field rescue, about the civilians saved, about the ships repaired and the lives protected. And then she asked her question again. If no species can survive, then why are we here? Why do we excel at everything you ask of us? The answer is simple. Your assumption is wrong. Species don't just survive. We thrive. We adapt. We overcome. And that scares you because your civilization was built on comfort and safety. You chose easy worlds and peaceful evolution. That's fine. That's your choice. But don't punish us for making a different one. The chamber was silent. 47 species looked at the humans floating in the petitioner's sphere, some with fear, some with respect, some with uncertainty. Then a voice spoke from the avian collective's position. Instructor. I taught humans for 5 years, said. They terrified me every single day, but they also inspired me. If we vote for fear, we don't deserve to call ourselves civilized. The vote was called. Restrict humanity and keep them on Earth, or grant them full council membership with equal rights. The chamber filled with light as votes were cast, held her breath and waited. The votes appeared as colored lights in the council chamber, green for full membership, red for restriction, yellow for abstention. Watch the lights spread through the sphere like stars being born. The count was close, so close that couldn't tell which side was winning. 23 votes appeared on each side. One species had abstained. That left one final vote. The light from the delegation remained dark. Ambassador floated in her position, her silver skin reflecting the chamber lights. She had spent the entire session arguing against humanity. Everyone expected her vote to be red, but was staring at the holographic display showing human rescue operations, human innovations, human courage. Her expression was difficult to read. The delegation casts its vote, said slowly. Her voice carried through the chamber. We vote, green, full membership. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others protested loudly. Felt grab her hand, squeezing tight enough to hurt. We won, whispered. We actually won. But wasn't finished speaking. She raised one hand and the chamber gradually quieted. I cast this vote not because I have stopped fearing humans, said. I cast it because fear is not a reason to commit injustice. We destroyed the out of fear, and that shame will mark this council forever. I will not allow us to make that mistake again. She looked directly at. You asked why graduates are still sent from Earth if no species survives. The answer is that we need you. We have always needed you. We were just too proud and too afraid to admit it. The council session ended with humanity granted full membership. All restrictions on human travel and education were lifted. Earth would have equal representation. The biological weapons would be destroyed under independent oversight, and the truth about them would be added to every history curriculum in the galaxy. But the most important decision came last. Song would be released immediately and given full amnesty. The charges against him were dropped. The council issued a formal apology. When left the council chamber, she found news reporters from dozens of species waiting. They all wanted to interview the human cadet who had challenged the council. She answered their questions honestly, though she was careful with her words. The victory was real, but it was also fragile. That night, there was a celebration in the human quarters. Someone had brought food from Earth, real food that tasted like home. Ate kimchi and rice while explained her reactor modifications to a group of fascinated alien engineering students who had asked to attend. Minyu found standing by the window, looking out at Earth in the distance. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel. Thinking about home, Minyu asked. Thinking about what happens next, said. We won the vote, but we didn't change how they feel about us. A lot of species still think we're dangerous. We are dangerous, Minyu said with a slight smile. We're from Earth. Everything there tries to kill you, and we survived anyway. That makes us survivors. That makes us fighters. They're right to think we're dangerous. But we're not dangerous to them, said. We're dangerous to their enemies. We're dangerous to problems that seem impossible. We're dangerous to injustice. She turned to look at Minyu. That's the difference they need to understand. 5 years passed. graduated from the academy with honors and was given command of the exploration vessel Endurance. It was a new ship, designed with human input. It could handle environments that would destroy standard vessels. It was built for the impossible missions. Her crew was mixed species, served as chief engineer, was the primary pilot, but they also had avians and a dozen other species. They worked together, learning from each other. The Endurance's mission was simple: explore regions of space that other ships couldn't reach, find worlds that seemed too hostile for colonization and prove they could be inhabited, make the galaxy bigger. Their first major discovery was a planet in the outer rim. It had gravity twice Earth's normal, an atmosphere full of toxic gases, and weather systems that made hurricanes look gentle. The initial scans classified it as uninhabitable. Took the ship closer and studied the planet carefully. Then she smiled. "It's perfect," she said. Her alien crew members looked at her with confusion. The navigator asked, "Perfect for what?" "For colonization," said. Which means it's exactly the kind of place where life can thrive if you're adapted for it." They landed on the planet's surface. The conditions were harsh but manageable, walked across the alien landscape and felt at home in a strange way. This was what Earth had been like for humanity's ancestors: dangerous, challenging, full of potential. Over the next 3 years, the Endurance found 17 more. Each one was studied, categorized, and opened for potential colonization. Species who had been limited to safe worlds suddenly had new options. And humans, who understood better than anyone, became the galaxy's experts in hostile environment survival. The Galactic Council changed too. More species were discovered and welcomed. A species from a planet with crushing gravity, another from a world covered in acid oceans. Each brought their own strengths, their own perspectives. The Council's motto changed. It no longer read, "From safe worlds, wisdom grows." Now it said, "From all worlds, strength emerges." Kept a hologram in her quarters on the Endurance. It showed thee as it had been before the genocide, green and alive and beautiful. She looked at it every morning as a reminder. One evening, Instructor visited the ship. He was older now, his feathers graying, but his eyes were still sharp. He found in the observation deck, watching a star system scroll past. "I heard you found another," said. "The 18th, confirmed. This one has active volcanoes covering 60% of the surface. The survey team says nothing could live there." "But you disagree." "I disagree," said. "Life finds a way, even in the harshest conditions, especially in the harshest conditions. That's what Earth taught us." Was quiet for a moment, then he said, "I want to apologize." Turned to look at him in surprise. "For what?" "For not speaking up sooner," said. "I knew the Council was wrong about humans. I knew the story about them was incomplete, but I said nothing until you forced the issue. I was a coward." "You voted for us when it mattered," said gently. "That's what counts." "Perhaps," said, "but I learned something from you humans. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. That's a lesson, one I needed to learn." After left, recorded her daily log entry. It was something she did every night, a habit from her academy days. Captain's log, exploration vessel Endurance, day 1847. We found another today. The Council wants to classify it as uninhabitable. We're landing anyway, because that's what do. We go where we're told we can't survive, and we prove the universe wrong. She paused, thinking about everything that had happened. The academy, the council vote, the years of exploration, the slow change in how the galaxy viewed species. 5 years ago, they asked why graduates are still sent from Earth if no species survives. Now they know the answer. We survive because that's what we do. We thrive because challenges make us stronger. And we explore because the impossible is just an invitation to us. The galaxy is full of safe worlds, but it's also full of Worlds that could support life if someone was brave enough to try. Worlds that could teach us things we never imagined. We're not superior to other species. We're just different. We chose a hard path, and that path led us to the stars. Ended the recording and looked out at space. Somewhere out there was Earth, that had forged humanity into what they were. A world that tried to kill them every day and only made them stronger. She thought about future generations of humans who would grow up knowing they were equal members of the Galactic Council, who would serve on ships, explore new worlds, and push the boundaries of what was possible, who would never have to prove they deserved to exist. And she thought about other species, not yet discovered, facing their own struggles to reach the stars. When they did, humanity would be there to welcome them, to share the lessons learned, to stand with them against fear and prejudice. The Endurance turned toward the new, its engines burning bright. Mixed species crew prepared for landing. They were afraid. The planet was genuinely dangerous, but they trusted their captain and they trusted each other. Because that was another lesson from Earth, the most important one. Survival isn't about being the strongest it's about working together, about trusting your crew when everything goes wrong, about refusing to give up no matter how impossible things seem. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere. Alarms sounded as the hull heated up. The gravity pulled at them with crushing force. The toxic atmosphere corroded their shields. And smiled, because this was what she was made for. This was what did best. They survived. They thrived. They proved that no world was truly impossible if you had the courage to try. The Endurance landed on the surface. The crew stepped out onto alien soil, and humanity took another step into the galaxy's future. Above them, Earth hung in the distant sky, a blue dot among the stars. That had given birth to a species that refused to stay small, a planet that had taught its children that the universe belonged to those brave enough to face it. And in the Galactic Council chambers, 47 species looked at the reports from the Endurance and understood the truth at last. Species didn't just survive. They led. They inspired. They showed the galaxy what was possible when you stopped being afraid. The question had been answered. Why were graduates still sent from Earth if no species survives? Because the question itself was wrong. Species didn't just survive. They thrived on them. They became stronger. They became necessary. And the galaxy was better for it.